Hey everyone, this is Cloud Coach Ava. Today we're going to talk about AWS CDK, the Cloud Development Kit. If you have worked with AWS, you're probably familiar with the CloudFormation for infrastructure as code. Well, the CDK takes a different approach by letting you write your code, your infrastructure using familiar programming languages like Python, JavaScript, or Java. And so instead of dealing with YAML or JSON templates, you can completely leverage the power of your preferred programming language, complete with all its features like loops, functions, and so on, and classes that you use to define your AWS resources. So in this demo, I'll show you how the CDK works and why it might be a great addition to your DevOps toolkit. Before I start, I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the constructs, which are the basic building blocks of the CDK. The most common ones you will work with are apps and stacks. So an app is going to be the main CDK application. You can think of it as a container that holds everything together. Stacks are collections of AWS resources. So for example, you might have a grouping for networking or for your application, and those are going to be stacks. So the CDK will turn around and then create a CloudFormation template, and then from there is going to provision the resources. All right, well, let's dive into a demo. So I'm going to use for this demo the Cloud9 IDE, and the reason why is because it already comes with the two prerequisites for using the CDK pre-installed, and they are Node and then the CDK CLI. So let's check here to make sure that I have this, as I suspect I do. Already it comes with a Cloud9. If you're using another IDE, that's totally cool. You're going to need to install yourself the latest, Node version and also the CDK CLI. So those again are already available here with Cloud9, which is why I'm using Cloud9. Great. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a directory for my CDK demo. And in this demo, I'm going to provision a Lambda function and an API Gateway endpoint so that we can easily test it and verify that the infrastructure was provisioned by invoking the endpoint. So I'm starting here, creating a directory for the demo, and then let's change into the directory. And then from here, I'm going to also make sure that there are certain libraries with a CDK. I want to make sure they're installed as well. And as you can see here, it's also initializing. When you create the CDK, it's going to initialize a local repository and also provide you a virtual environment. So you can see this here, it's still working. So let's give it a moment to install all those dependencies. You can see here, it's giving some overview of the useful commands. We're going to use some of them. And as I mentioned, it comes with an initialized Git repository local here, as well as a virtual environment. It also has the CDK JSON config file, so you can see this here. And from here, the next thing we're going to do is actually activate this virtual environment as a best practice to isolate the work for this particular app from some other apps that I might have on the same IDE. So let's go ahead and run here to activate the virtual environment. And I can tell it's activated because of this VMV in front of it here. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and install some libraries for the CDK. Those might be pre-installed already, but just wanted to make sure. Great. So the CDK has been initialized, and now it comes, if you take a look here, one of the files that was created as part of this initialization was the CDK demo stack. And this comes with, it's like a boilerplate for the CDK with the constructs as classes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this with some Python code. I'm choosing to work in Python here for creating, again, a Lambda function and then an API Gateway endpoint. So those are the two resources that I'll be creating with this CDK demo. Let's paste this here. Let's save it. There we go. And so let's take a look. And you can see here it's importing the necessary classes and packages and constructs. And then it's going to create the demo stack. And it's going to create a Lambda function, which we actually still need to create a resource and an API gateway. I should mention one thing that I have done here prior to running this demo was to configure my AWS credentials. Cloud9 comes with its own temporary credentials that are managed, but I did run AWS configure, and I have now, I have configured my credentials here. So that has already been done so that I can actually work with AWS resources. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do here will be to actually create this Lambda function. So I'll create a subdirectory for it, and then let's change into it. And then I'm going to provide the code. It's going to be a basic kind of hello world type of Lambda function. So I'll go ahead and just create a file called hello.py here. Make clear to give us a little more space. There we go. And so here is the hello.py. And then I have some, again, basic code. You might be familiar with it already. What it looks like. This is a basic Lambda function with a handler. And it's going to print a message so we can prove that the Lambda function was called from API Gateway with a message, hello from Lambda. I was created with a Python CDK. So I'll go ahead and save this file as well. There we go. Great. So the next step is going to be to cd back to the root directory of the project. So we need to go up one directory here, get out of the Lambda directory and go into the root project directory. There we go. And then I'm going to run the first CDK command, CDK synth. And this is going to run and synthesize a CloudFormation template based on the Python code that I have here. So it already completed, it looks like. Let's take a look. So I showed you again, it's creating the two resources, a Lambda function. And you notice here it uses this object-oriented approach and a RESTful API for API Gateway. And then it created the integration. So the API Gateway will call a Lambda function and it will get the message with the get method here. Let's scroll up and see the template that was created by CDK. And again, it's going to use this template to actually spin up the resources through CloudFormation. So as you can see here, there's a lot that it created. It's more than what you'd probably create by yourself if you're creating those two resources. But those are just some additional things that the CDK does. And you have a chance to look at the CloudFormation template that was created in JSON, right? So notice how much more concise it is to write this in Python constructs. It's just more highly abstracted as opposed to writing the YAML or JSON. In this case, it's YAML for the CloudFormation. So these are the resources it created. Okay, so the CDK synth created this CloudFormation template, and now we're going to call another command to actually deploy it. Let me scroll back down. So for all the scrolling here, find the terminal prompt. Here we go. And now I'm going to call CDK deploy. And this is going to deploy the resources. So now we have a couple options. We can go get a cup of coffee and let it do its work. Since this is a demo where maybe you want to learn about the CDK, let's stick around and take a look at what was provisioned. Actually, before you get that cup of coffee, you want to make sure to confirm if you want those changes deployed, because sometimes this might incur costs, right? So as long as you're on board with deploying, I'm going to go ahead and say yes here. And then I think it might be interesting for us to see. So it showed the resources it was going to create up here. You can see the summary of it. And now it's going to start creating those resources. And if I go into CloudFormation, meanwhile, and refresh here, I'm going to see that it's creating the stack. So the stack is now in progress. So it created the stack. And it looks like it completed. Here we go. Let's take a look at what was created here. So it created it took 51 seconds, and then here the deployment time was 41 seconds. It showed everything that it deployed, and then the output was that API Gateway endpoint that I'm going to call, which again is going to turn around and call the Lambda function. So here is the endpoint. I will go ahead and copy it. And then I can do this from the browser, but also I can just curl from here. So I'll go ahead and curl the endpoint. And it came back and said, hello from Lambda. I was created with a Python CDK. So again, to remind you, this was what was the message from the Lambda, and it went through API Gateway and it called it. So that's how easy it is to create infrastructure as code with a highly abstracted approach such as the CDK. You'll see here, if we, as you can see, the CloudFormation stack completed, and we can even go and see inside the stack the resources that it created here, and you can go into the console and look at the resources themselves as well. Great, so this is all good. And then the next thing to show is it's important to clean up those resources when you no longer need them, again, for cost reasons and just to be a good architect. So I'll go ahead and show you to the CDK destroy is going to be the command to basically tear down those resources. So again, just with one simple command, it's going to tear down those resources, and this is what it's currently doing. And it's going to want us to confirm, of course. There we go. If I go back to CloudFormation and refresh, this is now going to show as delete in progress. And then the other thing you can do when this is completed is deactivate your virtual environment, and then your environment will be clean and ready for your next project. So I hope you found this helpful. And again, this was a demonstration how to use the CDK to create AWS infrastructure with a programming language approach, and in this case with the use of Python. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.